Hi, welcome to Fish. First I see Kim, and my name is Linda. I am fish.org. So today is a God shot, and we're going to get right to it because we only have 3 minutes trying to keep the timeline here. It is Matthew 22, it's the parable of the wedding feast. And Jesus gives this parable, well, it's actually a different meaning sometimes than we think it is, which is really awesome. So here we go. Now, Jesus speaks of the king who was going to have a wedding feast for his son. So invitations were sent out, and they were sent out to the A-listers, kind of what we do now too, right? So the invitation went out. He sent his servants out, and it was ahead of time, you know, kind of let people go get their designer dresses or whatever that they need to attend this feast. And then as I got close to the feast, the wedding feast, the day before, the day of, the servants went out again to announce that the feast is going to be taking place, and the people rejected it. In fact, they rejected it so much that some of the people killed the servants because they really didn't want anything to do with the king and his son. So, with this, the king decided to send out more servants, but to a different audience, to the B list, if you will. And he sent them out, and he was like, look, just invite anybody and everybody. There was no criteria that anyone had to meet. And it was kind of like B to Z, if you will. And that's not meant as a dig. It's just the reality of this parable. So the servants did do that, and they went out and they invited everyone from B to Z, both good and bad, and they brought them to participate in the joy of the king. Now, the first part of this parable is primarily about how Israel is God's chosen people, and they had been invited to participate in the party that accompanied the arrival of the Messiah. But when Jesus arrived, most of those in Israel wanted nothing to do with Jesus. They rejected him. So Jesus invited the sinners, the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the lepers, filled in. He invited them, okay? Now, the Pharisees and the religious leaders really didn't like this. So they sought ways to have Jesus arrested and kill him. All right, so the second half of the parable, which is probably almost a separate parable unto itself, is about a man who shows up at the feast. So at this point, now it was culture of the day that when a king invited you, you would come in through the front entrance and you would be acknowledged. And then if you did not have proper clothing because you were poor, you would be directed to a certain area and you will be provided with clothing so that you were properly dressed for the feast. And there's no way that you can avoid this, process to have nice clothes on your back for the duration of the event. So here's the almost second parable. So the feast is about to begin, and then this individual, a man, shows up without the proper attire. And the king asks how the man got into the wedding without the proper clothing. And when the man is unable to provide an answer, the king has him thrown out of the wedding hall into the darkness outside. Now, this may seem a little harsh to us, but, what else could the king expect from people he has rounded up from the streets, right, and back alleys? I mean, you think like, well, come on, give this guy a break. He's probably just some homeless dude, and he has no idea what's going on. Well, yeah, except the culture at that time really did make sure what was going on with the clothing. So to this improperly dressed man, it's not so much why aren't you wearing the right clothes, but rather how did you get in here? See the difference? How did you get in here? If you had come in by the front gate, you would have been given proper clothing. The fact that you are wearing improper clothing indicates you came in by some other way. This is reminiscent of Jesus' earlier statement that only thieves and robbers enter a sheepfold by coming over a wall. John 10:1. Everyone else comes in through the front gate. The implication here, people, okay, is that this man who was in the feast without the proper clothes was a thief who climbed over the wall. And ironically enough, there were many thieves there in the wedding feast, but they came in through the front gate and they were given proper wedding attire. So this guy has a different mindset. There's thieves there, but they did the proper thing. They came in through the front gate and they had the right clothes on. But this guy didn't. Okay? So following the conclusion of this parable, Jesus once again makes a statement for many are called, but few are chosen. And this in Matthew is not Jesus is saying anything one way or another about how God sovereignly chooses some people to go to heaven or others to go to hell. That's not what it is. I mean, I know a lot of people read hell into this statement, but, you know, the outer darkness and the gnashing of teeth, people think that's hell. No, that's not what it is. But this simply, okay, portrays the profound regret which is experienced by those who are outside the hall of the wedding feast. They are not inside with the food, the light, and the dancing, but in the darkness outside. The weeping and gnashing of teeth is it's a Middle Eastern way of expressing regret and shame. And the bottom line is, of course, there is nothing in Matthew 22 about unconditional election, okay? People read this in such a weird way. This is just the time of, you know, God's chosen have refused his offer. So God now is not denying their chosenness, but is saying if they do not live up to the reason they were chosen by God, which is to serve others and be a blessing to the world, then God will simply choose others such as prostitutes, thieves, and whatnot. And if it is argued that they are not worthy, that they are not clothed in righteousness, Jesus says, don't worry, they'll be given the proper attire as they enter into the wedding hall. So Jesus will clothe us with his righteousness. We are not righteousness on our own. No, we don't have that. But we will be clothed by the King with Jesus in his righteousness. We come as sinners. All right. So if the chosen refuse, then Jesus is going to call whomever. And Jesus is saying that while many people were called to participate in his kingdom, only those who show up are chosen to join in the festivities. You could choose to go or not to go. It's still free will, right? But you have to come in the right way, which is through the front door. For only in this way will the guests be properly attired to live, serve, and function within God's kingdom. That's what it is. So that's it for fish as well. First I see Kim. My name is Linda. I am fish.org. And that was our God Shot for today. Until next time.